If you've been listening to the videos for a while or watching my Twitter feed, sorry, X, it's now X, for a while, you know I've been rereading the Dragonlance books kind of in order. I don't know if it's the right order, it's just the order I picked. So I'm on book 16. I just finished book 16 in the order I'm reading it in, Riverwind The Plainsman, which is one of the Preludes books. And Preludes are kind of a series of books that put more into what we learned in the first two trilogies. We're mostly focusing on the first one, but really the first two. Kind of digs into those characters one at a time. And this one obviously digs into Riverwind, and who was kind of a, I don't want to say a B character, but really kind of like an A minus character in the first one. Not that he sucked, but just that he wasn't as important to the story as a Raceland or Caraman or Tanis. So it in this one we learn a lot about the Plainsmen in particular and Riverwind specifically. And one of the things we see, and we were kind of hinted at in the originally, is just how important is ceremony and tradition to the Plainsmen. And it turns out it kind of drives their whole life. And that's kind of been true for humans throughout time, and some people still today. I mean, ceremony and tradition really do kind of drive why they do a lot of things. Certainly not true in the United States, but some parts of the world it's very, very true. So there's a whole series of things that get introduced in this book that are things I didn't quite expect. And it was probably one of the better ones I've read in the reread so far. And by the way, I've been reading these since I was a teenager, since they're only the first two books out in the original trilogy. So I had to wait for book three. It was frustrating, but now there's 200 plus of them. And now that I read them in my 50s, I'm trying to do it a little more objectively. I've written a few books of my own, so I'm trying to look at it more of, you know, were these as good as I remember? Are they not as good as I remember? Yeah, I mean, they're pulp fiction at some level, but it's good fantasy pulp fiction. Some of them are fantastic. Some of them are okay. This book I would put in the really good version, because it really did dig into Riverwind and kind of what drives him. And we realized pretty quickly that he was a lot more than we got out of him in the first couple of trilogies. We are focused on other characters, but there's a lot more to the man than we saw to the character than we saw in the first couple of trilogies. And he goes on this quest to try to find something of the true gods. And the reason that he went on this quest was he wanted to marry Goldmoon, and Goldmoon was, of course, above his station in the tribe, so he wasn't really allowed. They weren't just like, "Yeah, welcome, come in, marry the chieftain's daughter," because you're like a nobody, which doesn't really work that way, right? Even some parts of the world today, it doesn't work that way. It certainly didn't work in this little fantasy setting. It So they give him this quest to go on, and the chieftain thinks he catches a Riverwind, and normally they should give him a quest that's kind of doable, and everybody's like, "Yay, he's got a quest, and if he completes this thing, then he can marry." So the chieftain was like, "Aha, I've got it. I will come up with a quest nobody can complete. Go find proof of the gods." How do you prove that, right? So he goes on this quest, almost dies. Actually, as we know from the original trilogy, does succeed in it. Along the way, he meets, Gully Doors, which we knew about, an interesting race of elves, that are I still have questions about, but I found kind of interesting. Um, and I think I understand why when he kind of got back with proof of the gods, he didn't really remember anything. It seems odd that in the original trilogy we just go, oh, he just didn't know anything about the quest because he got back, he was very sick or whatever. He had no memory of it. But now I get it, right? So he was under a lot of spells. He had all these illusion spells cast on him. He was, in situations that were stressful, and the dude almost died had it not been for the intervention of some knowing some characters. I know I'm not giving a spoiler away because this is Preludes, and we know he was in the original series. So surprise, surprise, he lives, okay? And succeeds in his quest. Uh, no big shockers. But along the way, there's a lot of things that kind of come out about the situation on Kryn when we had the original trilogy that sort of seemed to be in flux. It really did clear up a lot of that for me. And the book was actually very well written. It was not full of space filler. Some of the books I've read, once you get past that original six, kind of have been hit or miss. I was really kind of disappointed in that one. The Brothers Majire, I wanted a lot more out of it. But this one really delivered, man. If you get the chance to read it, if you haven't read it, check it out. It's a great book. And I'm going to plot on with the series. Plot on, wrong choice of words. I'm going to move on with the series with Flint the King. And I was always kind of interested in Flint for Fireforge too. And to be honest, I've never read this one. So this will be a first time through it for me. I seem to remember reading this one way, way, way back, but some pieces of it I still didn't remember because it's been so long. But this one, I have not read at all. So this is actually a new copy to me. I found it someplace at a used bookstore. It's one of the TSR copies, but we'll see how this one goes. So Flint Fireforge was kind of cool. So we'll see. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.